It is indeed possible to run power wires, specifically number 12, alongside control wires, specifically number 14, from a 6-circuit panel to a metering panel. However, there are several crucial considerations to ensure safety, proper functionality, and compliance with electrical codes. These considerations can be broadly categorized into firstly, wire separation and conduit usage, secondly, conduit sizing, thirdly, wire termination, and fourthly, inspection and code compliance. Let's delve into each of these aspects in greater detail. Firstly, wire separation and conduit usage. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, often dictates how different types of wires must be run to minimize interference and ensure safety. The primary concern when running power wires alongside control wires is electromagnetic interference, or EMI. Power wires, especially when carrying significant current, can generate electromagnetic fields that can interfere with the operation of sensitive control wires. This interference can manifest as signal degradation, communication errors, or even complete failure of the control system. To mitigate EMI, it is generally recommended to run power wires and control wires in separate conduits. A conduit is a protective tube or channel designed to house and protect electrical wiring. Using separate conduits provides a physical barrier between the power and control wires, reducing the likelihood of EMI. In some cases, even when using separate conduits, additional shielding may be necessary for the control wires. Shielded cables have a metallic layer, usually made of braided copper or aluminum foil, that surrounds the inner conductors and helps to block electromagnetic interference. If the control wires are particularly sensitive or the power wires are carrying very high currents, shielded cables may be essential to ensure reliable operation. Another option is to use twisted pair cabling for the control wires. Twisted pair cabling involves twisting two wires together, which helps to cancel out electromagnetic interference. This technique is commonly used in data communication cables, such as Ethernet cables, and can also be effective for reducing EMI in control wiring. It is also important to maintain a reasonable distance between the power and control wires, even when using separate conduits. The greater the distance between the wires, the lower the likelihood of EMI. As a general rule, try to maintain a separation of at least 12 inches between power and control wiring runs. Secondly, conduit sizing. The size of the conduit used to house the wires is another critical consideration. The NEC specifies the maximum number of wires that can be run in a conduit of a given size. Overcrowding a conduit can lead to several problems, including overheating, insulation damage, and difficulty in pulling the wires. To determine the appropriate conduit size, you need to consider the size and number of wires being run. The NEC provides tables that specify the maximum allowable fill for different types of conduits based on the wire size and type. These tables take into account the cross-sectional area of the wires and the internal area of the conduit. When calculating the conduit fill, it is important to include all of the wires that will be run in the conduit, including the power wires, control wires, and any grounding conductors. It is also important to use the correct wire size and type when calculating the conduit fill. Different types of wires have different insulation thicknesses, which can affect the overall diameter of the wire. Using the wrong wire size or type can result in an inaccurate conduit fill calculation. In addition to the NEC fill requirements, it is also important to consider the physical limitations of the conduit. The conduit must be large enough to allow the wires to be easily pulled through without damaging the insulation. It is also important to consider the bending radius of the conduit. Sharp bends can make it difficult to pull the wires and can also damage the insulation. Thirdly, wire termination. Proper wire termination is essential for ensuring a safe and reliable electrical connection. Poorly terminated wires can lead to a variety of problems, including overheating, arcing, and even fire. When terminating wires, it is important to use the correct type of connectors and tools. Different types of wires require different types of connectors. For example, solid wires typically require different connectors than stranded wires. It is also important to use the correct size connector for the wire being terminated. Using the wrong size connector can result in a loose or unreliable connection. In addition to using the correct connectors, it is also important to use the correct tools for terminating the wires. Crimping tools are used to crimp connectors onto wires, while stripping tools are used to remove the insulation from the wires. Using the wrong tools can damage the wires or connectors and can result in a poor connection. When terminating wires, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. The manufacturer's instructions will provide specific information on how to terminate the wires properly. It is also important to inspect the finished termination to ensure that it is secure and reliable. Look for any signs of damage or looseness and correct any problems before energizing the circuit. Fourthly, inspection and code compliance. Finally, it is essential to have the installation inspected by a qualified electrician to ensure that it meets all applicable codes and standards. A qualified electrician has the knowledge and experience to identify potential hazards and to ensure that the installation is safe and compliant. The NEC is a comprehensive set of standards that governs the installation of electrical wiring and equipment. The NEC is updated every 3 years, so it is important to ensure that you are using the latest version of the code. In addition to the NEC, there may be other local codes and standards that apply to the installation. These codes and standards may vary depending on the location. A qualified electrician will be familiar with all of the applicable codes and standards and can ensure that the installation meets all requirements. During the inspection, the electrician will check for a variety of things, including proper wire sizing, conduit fill, wire termination, and grounding. The electrician will also check for any potential hazards, such as exposed wiring or damaged equipment. If the electrician finds any problems, they will provide recommendations for correcting them. It is important to follow the electrician's recommendations carefully to ensure that the installation is safe and compliant. Now, let's expand on the specifics of wiring and cable types. Understanding the characteristics of different wire and cable types is crucial for selecting the appropriate materials for your installation. Common wire types include THHN, THWN, and XHHW. THHN stands for thermoplastic high heat resistant nylon coated. THHN is a popular general purpose building wire that is commonly used for branch circuits and feeders. It has a maximum operating temperature of 90 degrees Celsius in dry locations. THWN stands for thermoplastic high water resistant nylon coated. THWN is similar to THHN, but it is also suitable for use in wet locations. It also has a maximum operating temperature of 90 degrees Celsius in dry locations and 75 degrees Celsius in wet locations. XHHW stands for cross-linked polyethylene high heat resistant water resistant. XHHW is another type of built-in wire that is commonly used for branch circuits and feeders. It has excellent moisture resistance and can be used in both wet and dry locations. It also has a maximum operating temperature of 90 degrees Celsius. Control wires typically carry low voltage signals used for control and communication purposes. Common types of control cables include shielded twisted pair multi-conductor control cable and instrumentation cable. Shielded twisted pair cables consist of two insulated conductors twisted together and surrounded by a metallic shield. The shield helps to protect the signal from electromagnetic interference. Multi-conductor control cables contain multiple insulated conductors within a single jacket. These cables are commonly used for connecting control panels to equipment. Instrumentation cables are designed for transmitting low-level signals from sensors and instruments. They typically have shielded conductors to minimize noise and interference. The choice of wire and cable type will depend on the specific application and the environmental conditions. Factors to consider include the voltage and current requirements, the temperature range, the moisture exposure, and the potential for electromagnetic interference. Next, let's talk more about conduit types. Selecting the appropriate conduit type is essential for protecting the wiring and ensuring a safe and reliable installation. Common conduit types include electrical metallic tubing, or EMT, rigid metal conduit, or RMC, and electrical non-metallic tubing, or ENT. EMT is a thin-walled steel conduit that is commonly used for indoor wiring. It is lightweight and easy to install, but it is not suitable for use in corrosive environments or in areas where it may be subject to physical damage. RMC is a thick-walled steel conduit that provides excellent protection for wiring. It is suitable for use in both indoor and outdoor applications and can be used in corrosive environments. ENT is a flexible non-metallic conduit that is commonly used for concealed wiring in walls and ceilings. It is lightweight and easy to install, but it is not suitable for use in exposed locations or in areas where it may be subject to physical damage. The choice of conduit type will depend on the specific application and the environmental conditions. Factors to consider include the location of the wiring, the potential for physical damage, the exposure to moisture and corrosive substances, and the cost. The National Electrical Code, specifically Article 300.3, Seat 1, addresses the requirements for installing conductors of different systems within the same enclosure or raceway. It generally permits conductors of different systems to occupy the same enclosure or raceway if all conductors have an insulation rating equal to at least the maximum voltage applied to any conductor within the enclosure or raceway. For example, if you have 120 volts power wires and low voltage control wires, all wires must be insulated for at least 120 volts. However, it is still a good practice to separate power and control wires to minimize the risk of interference. When determining the appropriate conduit size, refer to NEC Chapter 9 Table 1. This table provides the dimensions and cross-sectional areas of different types of conduits. Use this information to calculate the total cross-sectional area of the wires that will be installed in the conduit. Then, refer to NEC Chapter 9 Table 4, which provides the allowable conduit fill based on the conduit size and the number of conductors. Ensure that the total cross-sectional area of the wires does not exceed the allowable conduit fill for the selected conduit size. For example, if you are running 3 number 12 THHN wires and 2 number 14 THHN wires in a half-inch EMT conduit, you would calculate the total cross-sectional area of the wires as follows. Firstly, 3 number 12 THHN wires have a total cross-sectional area of 0.726 square inches, and secondly, 2 number 14 THHN wires have a total cross-sectional area of 0.404 square inches, and thirdly, the total cross-sectional area of all the wires is 0.113 square inches. Then, you would refer to NEC Chapter 9 Table 4, which shows that the allowable conduit fill for a half-inch EMT conduit is 40%. The internal area of a half-inch EMT conduit is 0.304 square inches. Therefore, the maximum allowable fill is 0.122 square inches. In this case, the total cross-sectional area of the wires, which is 0.113 square inches, does not exceed the allowable conduit fill, which is 0.122 square inches. Therefore, a half-inch EMT conduit would be an acceptable size for this installation. Proper grounding is essential for ensuring a safe electrical system. Grounding provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source, which helps to trip the circuit breaker and prevent electrical shock. The grounding conductor must be properly sized and installed in accordance with the NEC. Refer to NEC Table 250.122 for the minimum size of equipment grounding conductors for grounding raceway and equipment. This table specifies the minimum size of the grounding conductor based on the rating of the overcurrent protective device. For example, if the circuit is protected by a 20 amp circuit breaker, the minimum size of the equipment grounding conductor is number 12 AWG copper. The grounding conductor must be connected to the equipment grounding bus in the panel board and to the grounding electrode system. The grounding electrode system provides a connection to earth, which helps to stabilize the voltage and provide a path for fault current to flow back to the source. Common grounding electrodes include ground rods, ground plates, and metal underground water pipes. The National Electrical Code specifies requirements for working space around electrical equipment in Article 110.26. This article requires that sufficient working space be provided around electrical equipment to allow for safe operation and maintenance. The working space must be clear and unobstructed and must have adequate lighting. The depth of the working space depends on the voltage of the equipment and the location of any exposed live parts. For example, for equipment operating at 120 volts to ground, the minimum depth of the working space is 3 feet. For equipment operating at 480 volts to ground, the minimum depth of the working space is 3.5 feet. It is also important to provide adequate access to the equipment. The equipment must be readily accessible and must not be blocked by any obstructions. In summary, while it is possible to run power and control wires together from a 6-circuit panel to a metering panel, careful consideration must be given to wire separation, conduit sizing, wire termination, and code compliance. Following these guidelines will help to ensure a safe, reliable, and compliant electrical installation.